Hello， 各位观众朋友们，大家好，我是郝一博。在今天的大选节目里，我们要带大家看到另一个关键的摇摆州，拥有29张选举人票的 Florida。请跟着我们的特派记者 Roman 一起看看当地民众的想法是什么。
We are here in Florida, one of the key battleground states. But a lot of people don't know that over a quarter of Florida's population are Hispanics, people who have either come or their families have come from places like Colombia, Puerto Rico, and largely Cuba, which is why we're here in the Little Havana neighborhood of Miami in order to speak to Cuban Americans, get a feeling for who their candidates of choice are and what issues affect them the most. So let's go talk to some people and find out for ourselves.
I found that the best way to find out what people are thinking is to just ask. So we went over to Versailles, one of the most iconic Cuban restaurants in all of Miami. It's a real cultural hub where people come to drink Cuban espresso, hang out, and talk politics. So we took a walk around and asked people who they were voting for and why.
Which candidate are you supporting in the 2020 election, if you don't mind me asking?
Donald Trump.
Trump.
Por Trump.
Biden.
Donald Trump. Correctamente, por nuestro presidente Trump, así mismo.
Por el presidente Trump, el bárbaro.
Porque Trump.
About 80% of the people that we spoke with told us that they were voting for President Trump.
Trump.
What's the biggest reason?
I think he has promised a bunch of things that he's fulfilled in every one of his promises, and I believe in everything that he wants to do.
Because I hate socialism.
Because he's not a politician. He cares about the people. He cares about individual liberty, which is what I care about. I care about being able to say what I want to say when I want to say it and not be ostracized for it. It's a great country. It's the best country in the world. Perfect? Far from it. But there's nothing better.
Many people I spoke with told me that a key factor behind their support for President Trump was the Democratic Party's shift further left. That's because many Cuban Americans who are living in Miami either escaped from communist Cuba or had parents who did. And as a result, they are deeply suspicious of leftist policy positions. They remember that before the Communist Revolution in 1959, Cuba was a relatively rich country. Certainly there were some deep inequalities, particularly between the cities and the countryside, as well as between different racial groups, but Cuba still ranked 5th in the hemisphere in per capita income, 3rd in life expectancy, 2nd in per capita ownership of cars, and 1st in TV ownership. But within 2 years of the revolution, Castro's regime confiscated more than $25 billion worth of private property owned by Cubans. And today, Cuba ranks 2nd to last in economic freedom in the Americas, only ahead of Venezuela. Many of the Cuban Americans who are living in Miami were among the 500,000 that ended up fleeing Cuba over the last 2 decades post-revolution.
When people go, they usually go just to Havana and they see like the beautiful touristy part that's actually up. The government does keep up and it's painted and everything. But once you go inside to the actual streets of Cuba, you see the buildings are crumbling. I'm Barbara Lopez and I'm a second generation Cuban American. You know, these are buildings that should be condemned and unlivable, but the Cuban people have no other choice than to live in these buildings because they don't have any money, they don't have anywhere else to go. And you know, there's what they call apagones every night for a certain amount of time. I think it's like 4 or 5 hours that the whole Cuban country, different provinces, they shut off the lights, electricity, completely. And that's supposedly to save money and the water. You see how they live, you know, they're drinking dirty water, their clothing, everything they're given to they're sent by their families here.
Jorge Monteguedo escaped Cuba in 1962. He and his family have been running a neighborhood pharmacy here in Miami for the past 48 years.
We're in Cuba, and that's what they came in power. You know, when Fidel Castro came into the town, so they called him a saint. The saint came down from the mountain. He wasn't a saint. When he spoke the first time, they put a dove on his shoulder here. So people would say, oh my God, even the dove, you know, he's in peace. And then the second thing that he did, he said, why we need guns? And so by that, he took from everybody, he took the guns and knife, so he could do things. And that's what we're afraid here, most of the Cubans here, by taking away the Second Amendment, it's going to be, that's what they want. You know what I mean? They want that so that we don't have any power against the government. And that's what happened in Cuba. They took all the guns, and if they find you with a gun, they will take you to the paredon, you know, the firing squad. So that's one of the reasons that my parents sent me here.
One issue that I really wanted to know about, and that was, what effect was mail-in voting going to have on this election? According to the Florida Secretary of State website, Democrats have already requested nearly 700,000 more mail-in ballots than Republicans. So we wanted to ask both sides about their thoughts on mail-in ballots. Luckily for us, while we were in Miami, President Trump came to have a roundtable discussion at his golf course in Doral. So we were able to take the opportunity and ask both sides, both the president's supporters as well as the people who were protesting against him, about their thoughts on mail-in voting.
During this election cycle, are you voting by mail or in person?
I think I'm going to request a ballot, but most likely I will vote at the polls.
Are you going to be voting by mail or in person?
I will be voting on October 24th, which is the first day that I could cast my ballot. I cannot cast my ballot soon enough. So on October 24th, I will be early voting in person. If you can go grocery shopping, you could go vote in the polls. You can stand outside, you could pack a lunch, but please cast your ballot. Do not sit this one out. And I hope everyone uses their voice, because that's what democracy is all about. We all have a voice and we all should be counted.
I will be voting by mail, but I will be delivering it to our elections department, which is actually right here in Doral.
By mail.
I'm voting in person.
I will be voting in person. By the way, I received a mail-in ballot in my house, and I never requested it. So why am I getting it?
No, I'm going to be voting in person because I also don't believe, you know, what the Democrats are doing about the mail votes. I haven't received anything yet, but I'm watching. I'm going to go and vote in person.
In person.
What's your opinion on the mail-in voting? Are you going to be voting by mail this year or in person?
Going right there in person. I don't care if I got to stay there 4 days. I'm doing it in person. I want to make sure mine's counted.
Absolutely 100% in person.
And so this Florida election might come down to a very simple question: whether people will actually show up and vote at the polls on November the 3rd.
好的，以上就是今天的节目。目前大家对美国选举的想法是什么？你可以在下面留言、订阅或者赞助我们的频道。今天就到这里，我们下次再见。